So I saw that a couple of people were doing a review on this, and I figured, why not do a review of my own? Now, I don't know if I have done one yet or anything. If not, consider this my first time reviewing it. But let's talk about the 1959 short, Really Sent. And this was one of the 4 final, as far as I know, final theatrical Pepe Le Pew cartoons. And it is definitely considered one of the best, if you will, one of the best. And why is it considered one of the best, if not the best? Mainly because it's got a good story behind it. Now, from what I've seen on my DVD, my compilation DVD that Warner Brothers put out, featuring all 17 of the shorts, Little Bo Pepe is the last one. And that one basically ends with Pepe basically being pursued by Penelope. Now, be that as it may, even though that kind of ended on a good note in a way to where you can kind of have an idea that they ended up together after the pursuit ended, basically Pepe getting a taste of his own medicine, if you will. Really Sent here was probably one of the best, like I said, out of these final 4. And why? Because, like I said, it has a good story. Because the difference with this one, when compared to the other Pepe Le Pew cartoons, is here, it doesn't start off with, Pepe showing up or anything like that. It doesn't start off with him showing up, just walking around. His stench is affecting everything. People are reacting comedically and, basically very very, like I said, comedically and over-exaggerating and everything. It doesn't start like that. Instead, it starts with June Foray, the late June Foray, narrating on how basically, a couple of cats, a mom and a dad, are expecting kittens. Because it begins basically with, basically a little tour of New Orleans, where it's located at. And we see this father cat just pacing up and down until you hear these little whines and everything. And he waltzes in, and the mother has just given birth. And as he's holding up the kittens and everything, he notices that one of them has a stripe like a skunk down her back. And being surprised by this, obviously the father, and by an extent a mother, they realize that it's going to make things a little difficult for her, if not extremely difficult for her in the future, especially when it comes to, going off on her own, starting a family and everything, getting her, basically having her own life. It's going to make things difficult because everybody will mistake her for not being a cat, but for being a skunk. So what they fear basically, and it's not really forecasted in a way to where, you see the parents talking, in a silent, mumbly kind of way, like, oh, this could happen, that could happen. No, you don't see that. Instead, you just see like a transition to where the narrator is like, acknowledging that this, I guess you could say this surprise, the surprise birth here with this style, with this color scheme that the girl cat has, but also playing off like nothing could really happen from that, like nothing could really affect her. And you fast forward to a year later, and you see that it does affect her, because you see her sisters, are basically like the first 2 to go out, and both of them end up getting mates. The sisters, go out first, and they both are finding, they find true love. Basically, they waltz out, they sit right there, up comes a male cat as he's walking by, he sees them, goes and gets them, there you go, end of story. But for Faberette, which is Penelope's name in this short, because at that time, they were still kind of transitioning, like, okay, do we just call it the Black Cat, or what do we give her? And they gave her a variety of names, from Faberette to Fifi to what they came up with at the end, Penelope, because she was called Penelope by her owner, in Who Sent You. That was the name she was given, and that's the name that Warner Brothers decided to stick with later on. Now, getting back to the story, Favorette, Penelope, is the last one to come out to try to get somebody, and just when it looks like she's about to do it, she turns her back, and that scares off the potential suitor because he doesn't see what basically you could tell just by, like I said, the father's reaction at the beginning. Basically, what could be the holdback, I guess you could say the negative, if you will, of her finding true love and finding happiness. The stripe down her back, causes to be ends up causing her causes the male cat that was going to be potentially her suitor to just run away scared, because it's like he doesn't see her as a cat, he sees her as a skunk. And it's like that's not good. Now, here's what's interesting. Pepe shows up on a boat, obviously from France to New Orleans. And, of course, with any Pepe cartoon, when he shows up, you get over the top, over-exaggerated comedic reactions by those that encounter him. And what happens is the narrator tells Penelope, Favorette, if you will, that not to give up, and her ship has come in. Because as soon as she says that, Penelope Favorette turns her head in the direction of where the boat is that Pepe came off of, and it's just overwhelmed with love, just like overwhelmed with love, and like, oh my God, I can't believe it, kind of deal. Like, here she sees someone that's just like her, just like her, and the moment she spots him, and you see this big old rippling heart effect coming, off her face and everything. The moment she sees him, Pepe's walking off the boat, and he's walking towards her direction, and as soon as he does that, he just notices her immediately. Like, he's just walking off, turns his head slightly, and it's like, hey, female skunk creole, and you have the narrator tell Penelope Favorette, go get him, go to him. And so she's running. You have Penelope Favorette running towards Pepe. You have Pepe running towards her, and them coming together with a big old heart effect and everything. And I can guarantee you, that you did not need the modern technology we have today back then. Okay, you did not need the modern technology we have today. Back then, for what was 64 years ago, you did not need that technology then to know that people in that audience at the theater, when that short was on there, as playing before the movie, whatever movie it was playing before, you cannot tell me when that moment happened on the big screen, people were not applauding. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me kids who are probably grandparents, great-grandparents now. You can't tell me that kids at that age back then, like I said, who are grandparents, great-grandparents now, you can't tell me that you can't tell me that their parents, or even just regular adults and everything, that still like going to movies and enjoying these little feature shorts and everything, you cannot tell me that they were not applauding. You cannot tell me they were not applauding, because I guarantee you that for some of us that grew up on Pepe Le Pew, in our generation, through broadcasts of those theatrical shorts, you cannot tell me that people were not applauding. In the theaters when it first aired, when it was first shown back then, and even as we grew up, you cannot tell us that as we watched every Pepe Le Pew cartoon, you cannot tell me right now that nobody was silently, if not, openly applauding watching it on television. You cannot tell me that, because they were. They were. And the reason I feel that happened back then when this cartoon aired originally in the theaters, and then as it got broadcast and reran on television in the years that followed, the reason I guarantee you people were clapping, people were happy, happy about that moment, excited about that moment, is because of the fact that every Pepe Le Pew cartoon before then, basically it was just almost the same scenario to an extent, with a few changes here and there. Like once in a while, Pepe would have the tables turned on him at the end. He would have it turned on him at the end, but most of the time it would kind of end in a way to where he's still pursuing her, where he has her, locked, to where he has her chained up, to him, leg to leg, kind of deal. All these kind of things. It would basically end similar, a little different and stuff, either pursuing or whatever, or him basically, trapping her in an area kind of deal, and then putting out a "Do not disturb you" sign or whatever. It would usually end in a similar end, I should say, not add, but end in a very similar manner. It would end in a very similar manner. But here, though, it was a little bit more different, because you don't just. Okay, look, you do have Penelope running, right? But you don't have her, being pursued by him like you would see in the other Pepe cartoons before and even after. You didn't see her being pursued in that manner. Instead, you had her basically wanting to be with him, but because of his stench, she could not be. She could not be with him. It's like, here's the opportunity she's been waiting for. Here's someone she can actually relate to, if you will, but she can't be with him because of his stench. And throughout the cartoon, you have her at the behest of the narrator, try to work around it, try to tolerate it, from either holding her breath, if you will, holding her breath, or even going into a perfume shop thinking, okay, I can get this bottle of perfume and spray it on his tail, that'll get rid of the stench. And it doesn't. It's only when Pepe finds out, finally, why she's not around him. Basically like when she's trying to give him a chance, trying to give him a shot, and then all of a sudden she takes off because she can't hold her breath that long, or she can't tolerate the smell that long. So it's basically, it takes Pepe finding out why she's running off, why she's disappearing. When it looks like, okay, we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna be together, and then suddenly she takes off. He finally finds out, after everybody else is reacting the same way, that, oh, it is him. And even when he finds out, he's like, no, it couldn't be me. No, it couldn't be me. But as soon as he walks by a manhole that a mouse is coming out, the mouse basically goes, "Pew!" and falls back in the manhole. And that's when he realizes that it is him. But because he wants to be with her, because he wants to be with her, what's the word I'm looking for? He wants to be with her, personally. He wants to basically, have a future with her. He decides, okay, I'm going to go to this deodorizing factory, because he notices a deodorizing factory, right in front of him. And he basically says, well, for her, I'm going to make myself dainty. And he goes into a vat room to get deodorized. Well, at the same time, Penelope Favorette, she's basically thinking of ending it. She basically has this rope tied to her waist, and it's tied to a rock, and she's going to basically toss it into the ocean and drown herself. Basically, it's like, because basically she has this thought of, well, if I can't have somebody, in this world with me, or can't have happiness with somebody, especially someone that's, like me, because of what they are, I can't be here. But it's only when the narrator says, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that, because use that old adjective, can't beat them, join them. And she points her basically in the direction of a Limburger factory. And what does Penelope Favorette do? Just like Pepe is getting himself deodorized, getting his stench removed, she goes into the Limburger factory and gets her own stench to be, so that she can be one with Pepe. Basically, they can both be skunks, if you will. And just when it looks like, after they both come out of the factories and they see each other, just when it looks like, okay, all is well, Pepe gets a whiff of her stench, her new stench, and he's like, so glad, so glad that you, so glad I, and he just takes off, and he just goes like, oy vey, what a day. But you get the idea that as soon as she catches up to them, that's probably when her stench disappears, and they're able to finally be together. Basically, the ending here kind of gives off the vibes, in my opinion, that they do end up together because her stench is not permanent. It's just like enough for her to kind of get an idea of how to tolerate his, not realizing that he's gotten rid of his for her. But overall, because of that, and just by the fact that this is one of the rare, if not the rarest times to where Penelope is not running away because of his stench or because of his advances. No, she's running away because of the fact that she can't be with him because of the stench. And it's only afterwards that she gets an understand, and what it is that she's willing to go out of her way to be with him, get rid of his stench, hold her breath, and even at the end get herself her own stench so she can have a better understanding of who Pepe is and all that. Well, Pepe, on the other hand, he's not as pursuing, if you will. He's not as pursuing, if you will, as before or even after. Instead, it's more along the lines of he's just happy to find someone right off the bat that wants to be with him, but he doesn't realize that the reason, every time they try to be with him and then they take off, it's because of who he is. And once he does find out, he's willing to be like, he's willing to be like, I get now why she always runs off. So I'm gonna resolve that, and he does. But unfortunately, the karma is, she's like, well, thanks to the narrator, she's like, the narrator's telling her, look, why don't you get a stench of your own? Why don't you go get a stench of your own so you can have a better understanding? Like, if you want to be with him, then be like him. See what it's like. And I think that's what happened, or not think what happened, but that's exactly what happens. She goes and gets her own stench to the Limburger factory, and you kind of get the impression that it's not a permanent stench, but it's just enough, like I mentioned, to where she can have an understanding and tolerization of what Pepe's smell is. So basically, she can get used to it. Not knowing that he basically got rid of his so he can be with her while she's getting a stench to be with him. Overall, the cartoon, the short, is really adorable. It's really cute. And it is one of those moments to where, again, you don't even have to exist back then when this short came out. This short came out, ladies and gentlemen, 20 years before I was born. So when I was born in 1979, this short was 20 years old. It is now basically, ladies and gentlemen, 20 years later, not 20, but 44 years later, it is 64 years old, going to be 65 next year. When I become 45, this short becomes 65. But anyway, the thing I'm saying, honestly, is it's one of those shorts to where you don't even have to be alive back then to know there was massive applause in those theaters when the moment of these two coming together happened. You know there had to be, and there were applause for everybody that grew up after that with the cartoon being reran on television and even put on VHS. There was applause at home. Kids themselves that would watch it were applying. Everybody was cheering, and I guarantee you people were cheering at home when this happened. Even nowadays, I guarantee you with all the technology we have, those that grew up watching Pepe Le Pew cartoons, which they could still do technically through Boomerang, I guarantee you, people that watch Pepe Le Pew cartoons, even currently, as soon as they got to this, I guarantee you they applauded as well. They applauded on it, they were happy, they were cheering, because they've been wanting this moment to happen. They've been wanting this moment to happen. And you know what? Again, I don't have to be around, I don't have to see social media reactions to know that those are the kind of things that happen. Because that moment is something that even nowadays, when you get these kind of moments in comic books or shows, period, you're happy about, you want to applaud about. Because you've been waiting for it to happen. You've been waiting for it to occur. And here it does. Here it happens. But overall, if you have not seen Really Sent yet, and even though I may have spoiled a lot of it, if you have not seen it yet, I do recommend, if you want a better idea of what I and others that have reviewed and talked about it are saying, go and watch it. You can watch it on Boomerang if you got Boomerang. If you have Max, I'm sure it has to be on Max. Or go to Daily Motion, I'm sure it's there, or go to VENMO. Go to an outlet somewhere that has it, and I guarantee you, you will not regret watching it. Because you will understand why people consider it one of the best, if not the best, Pepe Le Pew cartoon short of all time. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. What did you think about Really Sent when you first saw it? How did you feel about it? Comment below. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. You will get an audio version of this at PW Rosa's Discussions at all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. But most specifically, listen to it on Spotify. That helps me out a lot. But guys, give me your thoughts overall. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. And until then, I am out.